Hey, so I figured since we had some people come in a little bit late last time, that it would be fine if we ran on Tate time instead of official time today. If I gave everybody an extra couple minutes to just kind of like stretch and decompress and pop in not exactly on time, because I realized that I just kind of barreled through it yesterday. So with little regard for people that might have been a little late. But in the meantime, how has everybody's experience been so far? If you want to just throw some reactions in the chat, is everybody doing okay? Oh, that was an enthusiastic fuck yeah. Thank you, bro. Much appreciated. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I like to do these kinds of temperature checks just to see how everybody's doing. And then also, speaking of Tate time, I am definitely going to need a break in the middle of this 2 hours. I know for me that that's a thing that's going to have to happen. So I will, I will disperse us just for a little while in the middle, so we can hit the bathroom, refresh our coffee, that kind of thing that we need to do. Um, yeah, so that's wonderful. Elle, what you just brought up. There's so many people doing so many different things, and it's just so nice to have experiences like this where you get to kind of touch base with everybody that's just kind of on their own, little planet doing their own thing. But we get to cycle in and meet each other, and I think that's really cool. And actually, when you had your session with Zephyr this morning, did you get a chance to type in the chat where y'all were from? Where you were zooming in from? Not yet? Okay, do that for me now. If I know that we were talking about that a little bit um, after the session last time. There was a great question about, where is everybody zooming in from, just so we feel a little bit more connected. I am gonna pop my location in the chat. You don't have to if you don't feel comfortable, but um, it's just nice to see where everybody's coming in from. Wonderful. Oh my goodness. Hal, you are kind of close to me. I think that's wonderful. On the other side of the state, but close enough. Woo, woo, woo. All these wonderful places. I'm so excited. Thank you. Thank you for doing that for me. Oh my goodness. So many people are so far away, but we're all so close right now, and I think that's magical. All right. So I figured I was like, let me just do that 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes helped. I think that worked. I'm getting my notes going. Here we go. Okay. So I'm gonna have an eye on the chat too. Or I'll do my best. I'm gonna get into it today a little bit deeper than we did yesterday. Yesterday was just all about getting some writing on the page, especially if you haven't done that in a really long time. I know for me, when I attend sessions like this, sometimes I have the best of intentions in my heart, but sometimes when people ask me, hey, write about this or try this thing, my brain will not do it. So if I ask you to try anything today that you are just like, this is not going to happen, don't worry about it. Just write down what you can. I also know that we're working in tons of different genres and modes too. So I can't come in and be like, write this poem, write this story, write this thing. So it's got to be a little bit weird, and at least for me, I've got to come in like really open-minded to make sure that we're all okay. But I want to start with some context that I think will help. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, and actually this is going to echo a little bit of what Faye was talking about in the keynote last night. But I just want to be really upfront about who I am, so you sort of understand my experiences better and how they apply. So transness, obviously, I'm here, right, with you, so that is a tremendous, huge part of my identity and my beating heart and all of that. In addition to that, I am also very disabled. And so I understand that is a thing that, you know, some of us in the room that are not me are also dealing with, just based on that nodding that I am seeing. And I'm like, yes, yes, I'm here with my people. I'm here with my people. So I have multiple disabilities that just greatly affect my ability to write and work. So, full disclosure, I have a job. That's how I have my health insurance. That is how I am able to, afford the medications that I take. But man, oh man, it's a lot. And, when I say it greatly affects my ability to write and work, my information retention is just atrocious. Writing is hard to do. Just sitting in that space and looking at the words sometimes, and my brain is like, I don't remember what these words mean. I don't remember like what is happening. And it's tough because, time of day can affect it. What I've eaten can affect it. How long I've spent sitting down, how long I've spent walking around. It's just anything can cause like the wildest flare, right? So I have a script to guide me today, like I did yesterday, just to make sure I stay on track, because my brain does not do well if I don't have like some sort of like keynote presentation or some sort of, script to read from. And I'm so glad that you all understand that. So you can probably see it reflected in my glasses, maybe. But yeah, my memory is just so shot. I promise you that I practiced this. I ran through this. I have done all of the preparation necessary to, believe in what I am saying today. But it is just not staying in my brain. So I think that on top of that, another thing to think about is that, again, this is a period of tremendously intense emotions for so many people, me included. And it is really hard to figure out how to keep doing the creative thing that sustains us in the middle of everything going on, right? Like, I don't need to tell everybody about all the attacks on who we are, because they're everywhere, and that's a terrible thing. And so many of us are getting it from multiple angles too, because, we're not just one thing, we're lots of things, and it's a lot. So I see you, I value you, I hold space for you, and we are holding space for each other in that moment. So in this moment, so I'd like to do a lot of writing today, and a lot of creating in general, if you're feeling it. I am really, really, I know I mentioned this yesterday, but there are no words. I am so grateful to be here with all of you. And that's actually where I want to begin, within that feeling of gratitude. So we're not going to do the same type of invocation prompt that we did yesterday to start us off, but for the sake of getting our creative spirit moving, I'd like to start with some really low stakes writing. We're going to make a list. We're gonna take 5 minutes, and we are gonna write about something or many things that we are grateful for. This can be really simple. It can be a word purge, whatever you want to do, just to get the words out of your body and moving again, after your break from this morning. But just to ground us in this experience that we're in, again, just take 5 minutes and simply write what we are grateful for, what you are grateful for today. Okay, as with yesterday, I am so glad that I remembered to mute myself, because when I hear that alarm, it is so jarring. And the last thing I want to do is have you hear the jarring alarm, because it is the worst. So as weird as this may be, if anybody wants to share anything off of that list, just to, stay in the spirit of gratitude and joy and all this good stuff, I'd be delighted to hear anything. If not, we can definitely move on to the next thing, but I just wanted to give everybody some space if you needed it. I'm grateful for this Vegeta t-shirt that I'm wearing right now, because it's giving me strength.
So I was writing that I was grateful for my partner, and as I was doing that, they texted me and said, "What drink do you want me to bring you from work today?" And they do that every day, and it just makes me so happy.
It is so wonderful. Oh my goodness. Such a tender thing. Anybody else before we start talking about writing joy some more? All right. Oh, good.
I kind of went with my ex-partner. We're still friends, by the way, like nothing bad happened there, but they just taught me so much about being my authentic self, and we still check in with each other to this day, and I'm just so thankful for them.
Along those lines, I'm grateful for a breakup.
That was on my list too. Just throwing that out there. many of us understand. Okay, so I have this broken up into sections to keep my brain focused. So again, we've got some more generative writing time today. And, in order to kind of get to the heart of, why I'm having y'all do the specific tasks that we're doing today, I want to keep being honest, right? Because I think that kind of just authentic, we keep talking about our authentic selves and our authenticity and all of that. I think that it is so important for me to acknowledge that in this 2-hour generative session where we're talking about writing about joy, I think that it's so important for me to be upfront about the fact that writing is not something that has always brought me joy. Writing in a lot of cases has been something that has actually brought me pain, right? Like, there were long periods of my life, especially times when I did not have access to doctors and I did not have access to the things that I needed to be well, when writing was something that not only brought out tremendous pain in me, but also left me feeling things like empty and drained and void, right? And I am sure that that has happened to some of you or all of you, right? Like, I don't want to say that, we've all had the same experience, but it is highly likely that you don't always approach the page excited to go to it, right? And that's okay. But in this time together today, I want to talk about some practical things that I did to sort of help with the idea of actually looking forward to the time that I get to write, since that wasn't always true for me. The best way I can explain this is that because of all of the stuff that I have going on, and I know that that's not unique to me. I know that everybody has got their own unique circumstances that make them who they are. I don't have a lot of time to make stuff. I don't have a lot of time to write. And so if I go into it dreading it, then I'm definitely not going to do it. Right? Like, so writing for me had to become something that I looked forward to in the moment rather than something that I just dreaded because of all of the feelings that were going to come up. So basically the creative process brings me joy now. Writing or painting about hard things can still bring me joy after the fact, because I'm grateful that I've gotten those emotions out of my body. But I'm also not just talking about pen to paper stuff, because I know that the actual act of writing is crucially important, but I'm also talking about reading and learning and taking in other people's work and, doing things like what you're doing this weekend for yourself. Like, these are all really important components of a writing process, right? So it doesn't, I would never tell somebody write every day. That is, for me, wildly unsustainable. And I know that advice gets thrown out so often. And every time I hear it, I'm like, no, I would never do it. I've tried to do it, and it's just so, for me, just so unsustainable, because I want to spend time reading and I want to spend time learning, and I can't do that if I'm in my own bubble of just, doing my own process by itself. So while our processes are going to look and sound different, we're spending a lot of time in the actual acts of writing and revising, right? If it's something that we loathe, or, less dramatically, something that we don't look forward to. I loathe it. I used to loathe it. I use that word on purpose. But it's just important for me to spend time examining why I'm having those feelings about the writing, so that I can tackle those feelings, sort of overcome them, and then get back to the basics of my writing projects, even if those projects don't have a shape yet. So what I mean by that is, like, I'm in this weird period now where, like, I just finished a new book, and I'm not going to start a new one for quite some time, but I'm still going to write because, even though my project doesn't have a shape, I still want to be making something, because if I'm not making something, I don't feel human anymore. But I like to journal my way through those negative feelings about writing, because I'm still writing. If I'm doing it, it might not be the kind of creative writing that I'm, sharing with everybody, right? My journal is my journal for a reason, but I will journal my way through negative feelings about my writing, because I do not have time in the day for that shit. Like, I do not have time in the day for negative self-talk. I do not have time in my day for there's enough in the outside world trying to bring me down. Like, I don't need to do it to myself too, right? And I think that's really important. I also don't want that negative self-talk to spill into my creative work. So like something that I used to do is I would write and I would just delete what I wrote and I would start over again. You know what I mean? Like that really painful, just like, I can't get it out because I'm looking and I'm judging and I've got the judging filter on. And instead, now I just let myself play on the page and I can revise later. Like I can worry about that later. It doesn't have to be good. It just has to come out of me. And I think that's a really, really, really important shift that took me way too many years to figure out, which is why I'm talking to you about it now. But if I expel that negativity before I begin, if I do things like journaling before I sit down to work on a project, if I do things like start with my invocation like we did yesterday, I approach these projects with fresh eyes, a fresh heart, and I get to bring my best self to the writing, which I think is so, so, so important. It's also important to think about what about the act of writing brings us joy, because and I'm being really careful with my words here. While writing can be joyous, it is not always easy. Sometimes writing can be very hard. And that feeling that is so complex, right? Like unpacking that like, it can be something that brings us joy, even though it can be something very difficult. So for me, what I had to do was develop a framework that allowed me to sort of continue making my art, even when circumstances are not ideal, which is most of the time for me. So in order to build that framework, what I had to do, and what I do often, is write my own sort of why I write essays, my own sort of like, this is why I'm doing this thing. And I will do it once every few months just to kind of like get myself grounded. I like to do it at the beginning of like a big project, like when I feel that hope and that optimism, because it's really important to capture that. But what we're going to do for the next 10 minutes is another writing prompt where we're going to do our own why I write piece. Spend time thinking about why you write and write about why you write. Okay. So no filters, no revising, no judgment. Think about what the launching point is for you, what continues to be your launching point now. You might choose to examine whether writing is a thing that doesn't feel good. You might get to the heart of why it doesn't feel good. That might be something that happens today, who knows? Or on the flip side of that, you might choose to examine why writing is something that does bring you joy and why it does. So no matter what your approach, there is no wrong answer. And again, if you're not feeling the prompt, just get that pen on paper and write anyway, even if it's just to kind of journal about your day so far. So I'm going to set the clock for 10 minutes and we are going to write about why we write. Okay, welcome back. I turned my camera off specifically because I knew there was a 100% chance that prompt was going to make me cry. So I just popped that off for a minute. I know that these are developmental drafts and I know that, we're just kind of, doing the word purge here, but if anybody wants to share any part or anything, from what they just wrote, I'm open to leaving some space for that.
Yeah, I can share.
Sure.
I definitely resonated with the things you were talking about like writing not being easy or it being not always like the most fun or kind of even sometimes like a traumatic process, and I yesterday was talking with some folks about like trying to connect with my writing process because a lot of it has been like in the past was like a means of survival, and it was interesting when I was starting this list because my cat who just left it just came and lied down on me, and like the first thing I thought about was like, oh, I write for my cats to have somewhere to nap on, for me to be still and for them to lie down on me. And that was just like the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, oh, that's really cute and a different way of thinking about it. And I think that was really just a nice shift for my brain that was really unexpected of like, oh, it can just be for these cute little simple like things that like I think we're made to take for granted, like, oh, when I sit down to write, my cats have a place to lie down on me and get to snuggle.
That just brought me so much joy to hear. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you. Does anybody else want to share any part of their process or any of that?
Yeah. I some time ago, my partner and I were just talking about movies, and they were saying you watch movies to feel sane, which I'm like, you're right, and I hate you for it, like affectionately. And I was just thinking about like gender euphoria movies, like watching movies that at the time brought me a lot of gender euphoria, but like I have a really hard time sometimes identifying emotions within myself. Especially like if I like, because for a while like I didn't really have the language to be like, oh, I am not the gender you think me as. So like experiencing gender euphoria through like a fucking Tarantino movie or something like that, absolutely ridiculous. No idea what I was feeling, but I'm like, I want to keep feeling it, and now I want to write that same kind of stuff.
That intention had so much power. Oh my goodness. That was wonderful to hear. Oh my goodness. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can share. Something that I kind of realized as I was writing is that I was writing a lot about like me and kind of what I'm thinking about and like what I want to do. And a lot of it was about kind of expressing myself and explaining myself to other people. And I was like, something that keeps coming up is like other people. And that was something that I put in my list of gratitude too, is like, particularly this space and all of you, like being able to be in community with other folks who are like me or who understand maybe a part of me that most people won't, and being able to just exist in that space and be affirmed in that space and not necessarily have to explain myself, but just be able to express myself, if that makes sense. And other people and community are just, I am realizing is like a huge part of my writing and a huge part of who I'm writing for. Like I want to be accessible and like understandable to other people, and that's a huge, relating with other people is a huge part of me and why I write.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It reminded me something that I wrote when I was going through my list was I write because it brought me here with all of you. And it just kind of like came out of me, and I was like, oh wait, no, like that's really like a big one for me, is that I keep writing because it keeps allowing me to be in these spaces that are so affirming. So I'm with you 1,000% with what you just shared.
I feel like there's this thing I do where I always like start with where I write with my own trauma, because like I started with, I spent too many long moments with a hand over my mouth to silence screams, and that's why I write. But then like by the end of what I was writing, I write because at a poetry event, a young trans person came up to me and told me that they were able to come out because of me. So it went from like this dark place of like, I write to get out all of these things that I was told I'm not allowed to like say. And then it goes down to, I write because then other people are able to say things.
That's such a strong connection. I'm not like, I hope that what I'm about to say doesn't make it sound like I'm trivializing that experience in any way, shape, or form, but I teach a comedy and tragedy workshop at the university where I work, and I call that the sad sandwich when I am talking to my own students about it. I know that like that was such a weighty admission, and I'm coming in and I'm like, sad sandwich, but no, I just like, it's such a big deal because I think that it helps our brains and our hearts kind of wrap our heads around trauma when we place it between some elements that are a little bit more digestible. So I totally get that urge to want to you know, whether it's on purpose or by accident, sort of start with like that really, really dark stuff and then sort of launch into like, wait, like something softer, right? That connects, to kind of open up, like instead of being, you know, this like super, super, super close up view of something horrible that happens to us, you know, we open that camera back out and we allow other people in. And I think that that's a really interesting part of the process for sure. Oh yeah, the cat situation, the animal situation is so nice. I almost brought my bearded dragon out to show him to you, but he was really ornery today and didn't want to come out, so I left him. He ate too many hornworms yesterday and he's in a bad mood, I think. But anyway, sorry for that tangent. Sorry for that tangent. Oh, I love them too. Oh, he's so big and fat. I love him. Does anybody else want to share, or do y'all want to move on to the next thing?
I was thinking about the fact that when I was a child, I really wanted to be a circus clown that worked at a car wash. And there's like still a part of me that has been returning to that energy of wanting to be a literal circus clown. And I think part of my writing is honoring and taking very seriously that like silly part of me, because the silliness is like not, it's not just like funny, but it's also just like a way that I am inherently, that there's an absurdity that laughter like has to take this weird form. So I wrote that I want to write to the wormy part of me, the wriggling pink naked me that has lungs for skin and makes nutrients out of dirt.
What a joy. Oh my goodness. That just reminded me of, I wrote an essay about this, like a prose poem essay nonfiction situation. Oh, Temple, yes. Okay, so what I was about to say, I wanted to be an airplane, like an actual plane. Like when I was a kid, like I would tell my parents, like we would pass this airfield all the time and I'd be like, no, I want to be a plane. And they'd be like, you know, a pilot? That's cool. And I'm like, no, you're not understanding me. Like I want to be the airplane. Like, and I still think about that sometimes, like what that sort of like that takeoff and launch looks like. But yeah, Temple wanting to be the laundry machine. Oh, my heart, I am with my people today. Oh, this is and the tree. Oh, I should write this into a prompt that I do the next time I do a session like this. You know, what would you be? What inanimate object would you be? This very well may be a trans thing. This very well may be the trombone. Oh my goodness. That is magical. If we have time at the end, we're coming back to this. This is really important. I want to explore this further. Thank you all so much for your honesty and your willingness to share these things. Oh my gosh, the Barbie dream house. Oh my gosh, this is magical. I want to make an anthology of all the things that we wanted to be and still are. Oh, my heart. With the working elevator. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I think that another important thing that I want to talk to y'all about today is that, and I mentioned this earlier, I'm not writing every day, right? Just because, again, I told y'all I find that to be an unsustainable practice, but I try to always be making something. Like an important part of my, and Faye brought this up last night, so I think it can be appropriate to tie it back in. An important part of just my spiritual experience is that I am creating things, not the capitalist way, but like the interconnected way, right? You can see behind me, like in a past life when I had a partner that used to buy me Legos, I would build these Lego houses and, you know, use my imagination to kind of decide like, you know, who lived where, and like the ninjas live in this house and the, you know, whatever, right? But I would make that. I knit sometimes, but I'm very bad at knitting. So I try and it always comes out so awful. I miss the stitches, but it doesn't matter because I'm still making something. It still makes me feel good to do it. I make conversation with loved ones. I paint. Sometimes oh my gosh, Hal has a Lego Lord of the Ring orc that oversees the creative process. I love that. Oh, thank you, Arlen. I appreciate that. There's more behind me. I will take a photo of the entire Lego village and I will put it on the jam board. I'll show you all some of the figures and stuff. I'll do that later. But yeah, the reason why this is so important to me is because I am engaging my creative energy as best I can when the page is not the best place for my thoughts to go. Right. I mean, that's just true for me a lot of the time. So on that note, as weird as this might sound, my experience with nonfiction is actually the thing that helped me to kind of understand that not every idea I have is an idea that belongs in a book. Like sometimes trauma is not something that I need to commodify, because it is what is expected of me as a trans person and a disabled person, and just, every other identity that I can check off the boxes, like people are so interested in seeing our suffering. And I have a lot of feelings about that. So I think that writing toward joy is sort of a radical act in a lot of ways. But the idea of engaging with making in whatever format that takes for me helps me to stay focused on creative energy. So that way, when I do have a premise that belongs somewhere outside of my private journal, I don't have to feel like I'm scraping off rust to be able to actually get it out of my body. The process, the writing will still feel natural, even if it's been a long time since I've sat down and I've, actually written something with the intention of sharing it with someone else. So for many of us, right, especially anyone dealing with trauma in any form, right, there are going to be periods where the writing is just not going to happen in a consistent way. We know that because we've been through it. But making, the idea of just making, right, whatever that might be, it might be play, it might be however that manifests for you, at least for me, helps me feel like my creativity isn't atrophying in those times where I'm not writing because I'm dealing with something really heavy in life. And that is not to take away from the idea of burnout, right? Like that exists, that's real. Sometimes we just need a break. Like sometimes we need to tap out, not write for a couple weeks. That rest period can take a lot of different forms, and it is just so important to remember. And I say this to so many people that struggle. The writing will always be there when you come back. Like you're a writer when you say you are, right? So the minute that you decide, okay, I'm going to pick this back up again, it's not like you just forget how to do it. It might feel unnatural if the making is not something that you're engaging all the time, but the writing and your love of writing, both of those things will be there waiting for you when you are ready. I think that another thing I want to mention is that writing my first book was a really ugly, terrible process. My first book took me about 7 years to write. It was so traumatic. And it was like, it was a first book. So I'm doing the thing where I'm like, oh, I've got to mine like every traumatic thing that's ever happened to me. And I've got to write about it in like the rawest, most pure form I possibly can, because how else do you write a first book, right? But I was also working through so many extenuating circumstances, like those disabilities that I had mentioned earlier that like were not diagnosed quite yet. And serious poverty. So like I didn't even really have a stable place to even sit and write, let alone, so that was a lot, let alone focus on a book. So I had to give myself permission in that moment, in the form of time and space, to take very, very, very long breaks between when I would write and when I didn't. And I'm bringing this up specifically because I want you to know that you, even if you're not giving it to yourself, every day, like give yourself the permission again to take breaks when you need to, and try so hard not to compare yourself to the person next to you, the writer that's publishing X amount of things all the time, the people that you see on whatever, right? It's so important to remember that your journey is going to be different from everybody else's, because you're you, right? And you've got your own unique set of circumstances that make you. I used to beat myself up in that specific time period constantly for not being as prolific as the people around me. But those comparisons are not useful motivation. Exactly. We're not in competition, we're in community. That is so important. Spite might work in the short term, but for me, spite or jealousy or those negative feelings, But for me, it's harnessing the joy that writing can bring, as well as the freedom to sort of play on the page that keeps me returning to writing over and over and over again, writing, painting, however, because I do both, whatever is best to express the idea in the moment. So your process does not have to be the same as my process, obviously, right? But I find that I am most prolific when I find inspiration in my hyperfixations. So this actually ties back into, oh man, that excellent Godzilla and just general kaiju conversation we were having yesterday. I was thinking about this specific writing prompt yesterday, and I knew it was coming, and I was like, okay, so we're gonna have fun doing this. I'm really excited. So for me, I find that I write the most, again, when I find inspiration in the things that I'm fixated on, and I write without judging myself, trying not to sort of cut myself down before the writing begins. I don't revise as I go anymore. So what I want us to do is to find inspiration in our hyperfixations. I'll say that. I want you to write about something that you love, right? An ode to X, Y, or Z, whatever that means to you. And I see so many of you smiling right now, and that makes me so happy because some of you are already thinking about whatever the thing is that you are really excited about. I might write a Vegeta poem while we're in this 15-minute spurt. So this may or may not be something that also brings you joy, but I bet it probably does. Explore that intersection if you can. So I'm going to set the clock for 15 minutes right now. And again, write about something that you love for the next 15. Oh, so good to see everyone again. Oh, everybody popping back in one by one. I get so excited. All right, so I don't want to steamroll by without giving y'all a chance to share some of these odes that you wrote. I'm very interested, even if you don't want to share what you wrote, at least tell us what you wrote about, if anybody wants to dive in.
I'm not going to share what I wrote, but I will share that I wrote about a podcast called Wobegon. It's great, surprisingly queer, and I keep on accidentally incorporating their language about like memory issues and identity issues, despite the fact that his issues with memory and identity are because he's a time traveler who sometimes doesn't remember the current iteration of things. It's great.
Would you mind popping the name of that in the chat?
Yeah, I can do that.
Oh, thank you. I have not heard of this, so I would like to find it when we are done today. Thank you. Anybody else feel particularly compelled to share what they wrote or what they wrote about?
I wrote about tabletop gaming, but I feel like maybe I shouldn't read it because I've already made that my whole personality here. I don't know. But
I haven't heard enough yet, so
I mean, I can read it if you want. I can do that. Sure. Okay. We're always trying to define it to make it make sense to the largest amount of people, trying to find the words for it's a game, but also a story, but also just spending time with people and being together in some way that is both intimate and playful, could be intellectually expansive or raunchy or goofy all at once. It's not having to be yourself for a little while, or also being able to be the parts of yourself that don't quite fit into this body or this life, to explore what got left on the table at some point in the creative process of becoming an embodied creature. I could write these things down as a story or create a whole cast of characters, decide what happens to them and each place they travel. But listen, there's a special kind of magic to looking at the person next to you and saying, walk with me through this story. Let us discover what in these characters, in their worlds and circumstances, will live in our hearts long after the last roll of the dice. It's an older woman who thought this was all some strange thing the kids did, who can't remember her mechanics and sometimes casts the wrong, inappropriate spell at the moment, looking up from her sheet in the middle of a tense negotiation, and suddenly being the mother we all needed, who sternly says, "We have power here and you will listen to our words." It's a young boy who wasn't sure that anyone would listen to his words, who stutters and stumbles through his introductions and sometimes isn't sure there's really room for him at all, suddenly jumping out of his chair and swinging his arms wildly to act out a daring rescue or a selfless sacrifice, and sitting back down with straighter shoulders, with his chest a little puffed. And it's me, somewhere between these ages, breathing easier for a moment now and then, setting down the weight of the world and remembering that it is possible to laugh, to cry, and then to move forward to the next scene. That's what I got. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for sharing. Oh, I'm so excited. What possibility there. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Would anybody else like to talk about what they wrote or share what they wrote, or both?
I can. Mine ended up kind of becoming more like a script, like a play or something, rather than like a poem per se. I really like bad ghost story television shows. I just think they're very funny, and because I do a lot of like academic stuff with haunted house literature, that this is like a good balance. So mine is kind of like an ode to that. Required cast: the woman who owns the house and has seen the ghost, her husband who is more interested in showing off their finished basement, the couple's daughter who we are told is weird, but is weird in the way all little girls are, 2 men with booms and audio equipment, and 2 men, ghost hunters, generic names like Andrew or Matt. Optional cast: a historian who looks like the girl next door, brunette obviously, and a medium, dressed like she's from Long Island, but probably lives in Ohio. Scene 1. Historian: based off of the county records, a Miss Claire Bushwell died here in 1903. Medium: she's coming through. Sad, perhaps? Andrew: maybe Matt. She died here? Historian: well, most people died in their houses around then, so it actually isn't really unusual at all. Wife: that's who I saw while I was doing laundry. She went right up the steps. Her husband: do you all need to see the basement? Maybe set up some cameras down there? The guy with the boom walks far too much into the frame. Matt, though maybe Andrew. Medium: is anyone else coming through? Medium: she seems distressed, calling out for help. Child: she says she's waiting, that maybe she'll stay in the kitchen, so we have to leave. Maybe go to Burger King for dinner. And that's it.
I'm so excited that took the form that it did. I know I mentioned earlier, like, we're not all poets, we're not all fiction writers, we're not all essay. So when the things just do what they're gonna do, like, I'm all for it. I'm all for that. Let's see, in the chat was moving. Hal, you're welcome to share when you're ready.
I have been peanut buttered.
Okay.
I got hungry. Don't judge me.
I would never.
I want to preface this with a vocal fuck Quentin Tarantino, and an equally vocal I am claiming Reservoir Dogs for my own malicious trans purposes. Haha. There is something about Mr. Orange's performance that just hits a fucking nerve, 2 exclamation marks. I'm not talking about Tim Roth playing Mr. Orange, I'm talking about Freddie playing Mr. Orange. Freddie, pretty boy with blue walls in his apartment like it's a childhood bedroom. My own walls were blue. Silver Surfer poster right out there in the living room. Eyes Thor Ragnarok poster, which is also right there in my own living room. Freddie's pacing back and forth in his cool guy tank top, getting his story straight. Cut to him rehearsing outside. Motherfucker, he says, tone annoyed yet playing it casual all the same. It's an amused annoyance, a can you believe this guy kind of deal. I'm trying to watch The Lost Boys. This film came out in 92, The Lost Boys came out in 87, so it's not like it's that old, but Freddie, The Lost Boys is camp as fuck. It's all about performance. Michael wants to join Kiefer Sutherland's edgy vampire gang just like Freddie wants to get in with Joe Cabot in his heist. Big men, tough guys, effortlessly cool. Nobody's naturally that way. Freddie's just the guy we follow for the behind-the-scenes look. Disc 2 with all the special features back when DVDs were still a thing. Being trans is a bit like that. It's about the weird push-pull of, no, I'm not a film bro and wanting to be one anyway. It's about walking around my apartment, Batman comics and Scorsese films strewn around, wearing nothing but a binder and PJ pants, trying to approach whatever the fuck dude level is. My therapist has on several occasions made comments about my relationship with media.
Oh, dude level. Oh. Yes, I also felt that in my soul, echoing that chat. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. I built in a lot of time today for sharing because I thought that honestly the writing is so important, but I think that the sharing is maybe even more important in a lot of ways, just for us to hear each other and see each other, and get to just revel in all of this amazing stuff that's happening. So if anybody else wants to dive in, there's plenty of time to do so.
I wrote Ode to Harry's House, the new Harry Styles album. Give me something to bop my body to while I funk down the avenue in my short shorts. A little high, a lot of gay, magic, magic, magic. Oh, to join the ranks of gaggles of fans at this seemingly late hour. I don't care. I'm too old to be cool. I want to fleet foot onto the bandwagon because the band is playing my song. Songs written just for me, just for now. I have never Gene Kelly'd in the rain, but hip grooving to this album, I know now what it feels like to wrap yourself around a lamppost. None of my lovers, past or present, come to mind when I hear these songs. It is all Harry Styles. Is it him? Is it that as he becomes his authentic self, I enjoy his music more? Or is it the hormones? This is the soundtrack to my second puberty, and it is oh so much more tearful than the soundtrack to the first.
I just took the deepest breath when you were done reading. Oh my gosh, that made me so happy. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was like, what's Harry's house? And then you mentioned what I was like, oh, now I know. Now I know what's going on. Magical, absolutely magical. Would anybody else like to share their odes or talk about what they wrote about?
I can share if no one else wants to go now.
Mm-hmm.
So as those of you from my meet and greet group last night will understand, this is an ode to the anglerfish. I have already written too many poems about the anglerfish, but I am tasked with writing about something that I love or something that brings me joy, or both. Football fish, sea devils, frogfish, dreamers too. Their light lure, called an esca, is lit by bioluminescent bacteria, symbiotic, unable to produce light on their own. Their bodies, sometimes females absorbing smaller males, joining forever in the deep waters of home. I could go on for a while, but instead I'll puzzle out why exactly the anglerfish is something I love. Maybe it's their lonely existence, which I understand so well. Maybe it's the idea of being able to produce their own light in the dark. Maybe it's that their light draws in what they need to survive. Maybe it's the fact that even with as hideous as they are, all needle teeth and bloated body, someone thought to call some of them dreamers, as if even there, in the endless depths, so lonely in the black, with only their own light to guide them, anglerfish can and do dream.
Thank you so much. Oh, so lovely. Oh, I'm so excited we're all reading today. Would anybody else like to share?
I would like to, if possible. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. I'll go ahead. So I originally thought I was gonna write an ode to durian, and then I realized I was writing an ode more to like this imaginary durian emoji that doesn't exist yet because the like emoji governing board hasn't created it. But I also want to preface that when I was on like hookup apps, that was the name I would use, was durian emoji, in the absence of an actual durian emoji. So not even the actual fruit, but the abstraction of it that sits alongside brown, Asian, Southeast, island, and humid. I've tasted a fresh durian one time in the bukid. Thought I didn't like it. More than liking it though, more than liking how it tasted, I was excited to witness. I've had it mostly in smoothies I buy with a banh mi or in lieu of a milk tea. I adore the divine femininity of the yellow cream custarded flesh, the profane transness of a rind that spikes, the queer perversion of the savory stink pig odor. You know on Grindr, tops use eggplant emoji and bottoms use peach emoji? What if those parted lip emoji wrapped around my durian emoji? What if my durian emoji said, touch me, touch me, touch me? What if my durian emoji sang the shittiest sex playlist? All ABBA songs with double and triple talk titles, Kate Bush in an Australian accent, Whitney and Mariah on the Prince of Egypt soundtrack. What if my durian emoji said, look, scratch, sniff, don't touch? When I say durian emoji, what white man part of you wants to tell me about your travels to Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia? Keep going, you haven't said the right one yet, but you know you're Asian boys. You love Asian boys. Gimme, gimme, gimme your lumpia. That's what I wrote.
Please accept my enthusiastic fuck yes. Oh, so excited. And then SG, you wanted to share?
Yeah, I wrote a short little one and then one I'm more nervous about sharing, which is the one I will share to force myself to. Okay, so it is titled Self-Love. I love trans guys in gray sweats with 3 black stripes on the side and the cinched ankles for the short kings with thick thighs. I love trans guys with hoop earrings and Mexico jerseys and tacky-stained fingertips. Trans guys who buzz their own hair but need their tall girlfriends to get the spots they missed. I love trans guys who are great at guitar and suck at Smash. I love the trans guy I see in the mirror.
Thank you so much for that. Oh, I'm so glad I got to hear that. Oh, oh. I needed a deep breath after that one too. Oh my gosh. Would anybody else like to share that hasn't yet?
I'll share.
Sure.
So I've been obsessed with the moon for the last 2 years. I go sit by the ocean and stuff and watch it. So this is, I guess, an ode to the moon, but I just started questioning the moon this whole time. So I'll share a small snippet of it. Also, what is going on with you and the sun? Is she your lover? You create rings together sometimes, and that has to mean something, right? Did y'all make a promise? And I've seen the sun make you angry and red-faced and make you appear magnificent in the sky, but I know it's not really you. It was the effects the sun has on you. What's y'all's story, really? You clearly love her. Why else would y'all be so dramatic? And that's it.
Thank you so much for that. That was a joy to hear. Oh, yes, the drama. Oh my goodness. All right, so did anybody want to share that hasn't yet? I just want to make sure everybody has the space that they need and that they deserve. All right, so moving right along, I'll talk some more and then we'll write some more. So we've settled into that groove. So the question for me that is that comes up a lot is, how do I experiment with different writing processes, and how that leads me to new processes and stuff like that? Because it's a lot to talk about sort of the abstraction of, let's write about joy, but then, actually how do we do that, right? So for me, it took a lot of trial and error and experimentation, but for me, the biggest thing that has helped me be prolific in the writing that I'm doing now is just active self-reflection, the ability to sort of examine my relationship with writing with fresh eyes. So that kind of introspection. So a lot of what we've been doing today, like the why I write piece, the writing about what we love stuff, thinking about what we're grateful for, all of this helps me so much, because whenever I find myself dreading sort of bringing something to the page, I know I need to kind of move toward it a little bit. I know that sounds a little contradictory, but I was literally talking in therapy about this yesterday. literally yesterday, about, moving toward the things that make us anxious, and, doing opposite action behavior and stuff like that. But I know that when I find myself sort of dreading the idea of bringing something to the page, I need to change things up and try to center joy again, because for me, that is just so, so, so important. But again, this is why I'm journaling all the time. I'm writing in my notebook. When I say I don't write every day, I mean it, but I do journal almost every day. And I think that those two processes are separate but equal. Like I think that, because I don't want to contradict what I said earlier, but the journaling for me is so, so, so important, because it helps me sort of get ahead of my own bad attitude. Because like I am presenting to you that just, like I try to be so positive, but like I know that I have a bad attitude sometimes, like a really bad attitude. And I try to get ahead of it as best I can when I'm journaling about my creative process. So for me, what is key is the concept of experimentation and the concept of ideation. So my writing would not survive without these things. So to be comfortable with these things, I had to kind of reevaluate my relationship with both success and failure. So success and failure are really nuanced and really complicated. But because of my extenuating circumstances, which we've already talked about already, and we've all got circumstances of our own, I have to be incredibly practical about both of these things. So like success for me, like when I was in college, I used to think to myself like, oh, I'm just going to get like a huge book deal, and that's success. That's what that looks like, right? Supporting myself only writing. I don't need a day job. So yeah, that did not happen, and that is okay. But for me, success is what I make it, and it is more reflective of my current life. Like I write and I publish when I can, I share when I'm able, I help others as much as humanly possible. And for me, that is what success looks like, and it's going to be different for everybody. But much like my idea of success, my idea of failure changed over time too. I used to think that failure meant that I wasn't measuring up to the writers around me. I used to think that my writing wasn't good enough. I used to think that failure meant that my writing felt really contrived. I try to be open-minded about failure now. Like I use this word really loosely because I understand that it's a process of trial and error is the best way to put it. Like not everything I put on the page is going to be magical, but like that's what revision is for, right? Like we come back to it later. If I was only as good as my first drafts, that'd be so bad. That'd be so, so, so bad. Right. But yeah, trial and error, because not every approach works well for every writing project. Like the thing that most recently happened, the thing I finished most recently rather, was an interactive narrative. Like I had to learn how to use Twine, and I was scared because, like my head doesn't wrap around technology. I had to learn how to do like branching narratives and stuff. And it was the easiest way to convey the type of narrative that I had in mind, but I had never done it before. And the first iteration of that project was really weird. And then it got not so weird, and then it got good. So like I'm really excited about that. I will be able to share that with any of you that want to see. I wanted to read it tonight, but it's like impossible to read it to other people. They have to play it themselves. So if you are interested in the interactive narrative, tell me and I will send you a file with it in it. Yeah, like I oh, thank you, Connie. Sure. Okay. I'll figure it out. I will I'll put my okay. Oh, so many of you. Okay. I thought maybe like one person would be like, I would like to see that. Thank you. It's all about transness and choosing my name and all that really good stuff that is juicy and resonant and all of that. But yeah, failure was definitely a part of that process. And not being afraid to sort of fail at completing the task in front of me was a really big deal. And knowing that my best was going to be different depending on the day, that, yeah, I'm doing my best writing right now, but that's going to change like day to day, like what my best actually means. But yeah, I revise and I put my work through numerous revisions and stuff like that. But the important thing for me is that I know that the writing is coming from the best parts of me, and the best parts of me are, that's going to change day to day as well. So like, I don't mean to sound contradictory and strange, but I have a full-time job, and like I said, full-time extenuating circumstances that make it so that every minute that I get to write is so crucial, that again, I just don't have time for bullshit. Like, I don't have time to, for that negative self-talk or doubting my work or wasting time. So I try to do as best I can, staying focused and focusing on the joy of it. So the ideation phase, what that means is, for me, getting writing on the page without worrying about it, and not revising as I go. So I talk to my students about this all the time, the concept of analysis paralysis, where we worry so much about whether or not what we're doing is good that we end up cutting the parts of the creative work that actually bring it life. So yeah, let's not do that. I'm so glad. I hope that we haven't been doing that all day today, but for the rest of the time that you're here, even if you go back to analysis paralysis later and that's your process, that's fine. But for now, just try not to do this. Because for me, like, what was happening was I was filtering my voice so much that it just, yeah, like, you got to tear those filters down, especially if your writing time is limited. So other than that, my first drafts are always play. It might be notes and outline, a loose version of what I'm working on, but I try so hard to make it some sort of play. Sometimes that means that my way into a poem is by painting it. Sometimes that means I go out and I take pictures. Sometimes that means I go out and I take as long a walk as my body will let me take, because that's different day to day as well. Some days I absolutely cannot do that. But whether it's a poem or an essay or a short story or something in between all of those gems, everything is going to start out as an idea, and all of these great ideas are going to start somewhere too. So ideation, literally just like the formation of ideas and concepts. This might seem like really basic information, and in a lot of ways it is, because we've all had ideas, we've all been influenced by the ideas of other people, but sometimes we have an idea that is so big that it shapes us like to our core, right? And we don't have a choice but to write it out. We don't have a choice but to follow that idea. And it could be, a love poem to Keanu Reeves. It could be like, an ode to the Mecca that we just built with Legos, whatever it is. Like, we have to chase that feeling. We have to follow it because our ideas have power. And, honoring that and turning those filters off when we are drafting is a way to just get out of our own way, right? And allow our ideas to actually manifest into something big, something good and interesting and cool. So I spend a lot of time in the ideation phase, like before I start revising. I spend as much time as humanly possible playing with the writing. And I know that timeline is going to be different for every project. And I know that that's different for every writer, but, and also depends on things like external factors like deadlines and stuff like that. Like sometimes if you're writing something, it actually has to be done by a certain time. So you maybe can't spend weeks and weeks playing with it, right? And I get that. But whatever it means to you, it's important for me at least to set up a timeline that allows for some sort of proper play, some sort of proper, like, I've got my hands in the writing and I'm having a good time before I turn the filters on, right? Whatever that means to you, really stretch that process out, because that's going to help you relearn how to approach it with joy rather than dreading, sitting down in the time that you have to write. And that freedom is going to allow for innovation too. So like, you might find that you've written poems or stories or, essays that take a pretty traditional shape. But allowing for hybrid work is really cool too. Hybrid work and sort of automatic writing, what we've been talking about, writing without a filter, has like literally saved my life. Like I can't stress enough how much the act of just doing this has allowed me to grow and change and be my best self. But for me, Every project I approach in that play phase needs a sort of map, like a fresh map. And so I will sort of like I said, I'll write out like a timeline, and that might look a little weird. But on the note of map making and on the note of, you know, doing something a little bit strange, if you were with me, which is what we physically intended to do in the first iteration of this, I would have a bunch of art supplies that I would now hand you. Some of us have our own art supplies. Some of us are going to do this pen to paper. But for our last sort of writing sprint, I want to do something weird again. I want to create a map to the heart of ourselves. Okay. This is going to be a little bit harder to share if you feel compelled to share afterward, but this might be drawing only for the next 10 to 15 minutes. You might begin to incorporate visual art in some way, shape, or form, but draw or describe a map as best you can, highlighting the important landmarks that make you you. Okay. Visual poem, graphic narrative, whatever you are compelled to make is wonderful, but try to incorporate drawing a path, if you can, from one image to another until you get to the center, whatever that means for you. There is no wrong way to do this though. So cut those filters out, innovate, be free, all of that. But again, we are going to write or create or draw, whatever that looks like for you, a map to the heart of us, to the center of us. And I'm going to give us, let's say 10 minutes, and then we'll do a debrief afterward. All right, everybody, welcome back. My intention was to give you 15 minutes for that one, but I realized what time it was and I got so sad. Come back to me if you like, but if not, please keep drawing or writing or whatever is happening over there. So I just wanted to talk about some final thoughts here. Risk taking is really important. What y'all just did, if you don't normally incorporate this kind of, you know, thinking into your writing process, that was risk taking. I'm really proud of you for having done that. I'm really proud of you for having shared today, if you shared, or you wrote today, if you wrote. I'm just, again, so grateful to be here. It just fills me with so much joy. Again, I know that we talked about this, but the void or lack thereof does not determine our writing's worth or our worth, right? You know, other people don't determine what makes our writing valuable. We do the minute that we say we're a writer and our writing is valuable. So be sure to carry that with you. Again, I'm proud of you. I'm so excited that y'all were here. But if anybody has any last minute thoughts or anything that they want to share, again, I'm respectful of everybody's time, but or not, but I'm respectful of everybody's time, and I see that we've got like 3 minutes left. So if anybody has anything they would like to chat about, or they want to talk about their map making experience, because for me, when I did this, it was very profound. You have some space. Oh, Lee, that's so kind. Oh, thank you all. Thank you all so much. I need these kinds of validating affirmations to be able to function on a daily basis. And I need them. So I'm like, if I need it, maybe somebody else needs it too. So yeah, of course. I'm happy to tell you. I'm proud of you. Hell yeah. That's not a joke. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that this was productive for everybody. Like I said yesterday, I was so nervous just because it's been a long time since I've been in front of a group that was not my students. So, oh, thank you. And I was about to say, like, this goes without saying, but like, we can all be friends. Like, y'all can reach out to me and, you know, we can keep chatting about stuff. That would be a delight. I'm so glad that this was generative for everybody. So we're right on time. So what I popped in the chat while y'all were working was a link to that Twine game I made. I'm saying game like I'm really overselling this. It is an interactive nonfiction poem. It is quite sad. I am just warning you in advance. But we didn't nerd out about this, but like I really love professional wrestling. It's like it's so drag. Professional wrestling is just drag. That's all it is to me. So I'm using the extended metaphor of professional wrestling to talk about like what it was like to wrestle with my own identity and all of that kind of stuff. So I popped that in the chat. It's going to look weird when you open the file. So you have to download it and then open it in Google Chrome. And when you do that, you'll be able to like actually press the buttons and do the thing. But other than that, thank you all so much. I'm going to hang out for, yes, I'm so excited that you're excited. I'll hang out for a few minutes, but otherwise our time is over. And take a break and do your thing later today, but like, please reach out to me so we can keep geeking out at some point. I would love that. Thank you all
so
for
much,
coming
Jenny.
today. Yeah.
I'm sneaking in here. I'm just letting folks know we'll keep the window open here for the next couple minutes or so, but then we're going to close down Zoom for a couple hours and we're going to come back a little bit before 4. Just this can be an opportunity to download files so I can start making making videos for those who weren't able to attend all the sessions or who weren't able to make it due to illness this weekend. So thank you guys so much. And yeah, again, I'll probably close down in about 5 minutes or so.
Erin, I forgot we were closing down. I'm sorry. I was like, I'll stay. It'll be fine.
No, it's fine. Please stay.
Oh, man. Erin, thank you for everything that you're doing to keep all of this available for us for so long today and yesterday.
Absolutely. This is my joy. If I could be cooking you all food, that would make it even better. So
fair. You do make amazing food, and it has been a long time since I have had it. I will be honest.
You've got to come visit. It's just been too long.
We got to do it when it is not the glaring summer heat. But yes.
Yeah, that's legit. It's quite nice. It's only 85 today. You come way up north, like the heat significantly less intense.
Yeah, it is supposedly 90 degrees outside, but that means 100 degrees when you step out the door. So I'm not thrilled about what is happening right now here, but yeah, it's rough. I'm on 2 medicines right now that are like, don't go out in the sun. I'm like, but I live in Florida. This is impossible. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
All right. Well, I guess I'll get out of here. I'll get out of your hair and I will see you tonight. I'll see everybody tonight. I'm excited about that for the reading.
Absolutely. And you're never in anybody's hair.
Oh, my heart. Okay, thank you. Thanks again, everybody. I'll see you soon.